Hey there, this is Katherine Cartwright. Welcome to Crafter Party. I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to start by making a tag. You got your box full of goodies, the bunch of stamp sets, some glitter, some little embellishments, ribbon, paper, just lots and lots of fun stuff, as well as stencils too. I can't forget those. So I'm going to start this tag by stamping with my Welsh Dragon. I'm using one of those wreaths from the holiday wreath stamp set, that big beautiful 6x8 stamp set that was included in your box. I love the way the Welsh Dragon looks with this wreath, so I'm just stamping that directly on there, and then I will add a Merry Christmas sentiment in the middle. I love the way that the wreath is open, so you can add your sentiments inside. And there's several to choose from in different fonts. So I'm just going to select the one that I want for this tag, and then I'll add that to the middle. I'm going to use some telephone box ink, which is a beautiful red, to ink up the center. And then I'll add that to my tag. And I'm going to stamp it twice. It's the first time I've used it. It's stamped fine, but I just wanted to make sure that I've got a really nice bright red color. And then I'm going to have some fun with kind of an older technique, I guess you would call it. I've got some red line tape. It's a really, really sticky tape. It's called red line because I guess the liner is red. And it comes in different widths. I've had some forever of different widths, and I'm using this one here. I have taped down my tag, and I'm going to run 3 lines across my tag here, and then I'm going to use some of that beautiful glitter that was included in the Crafter Party box. I'm not a big loose glitter person. I love glitter glue. If you've ever watched my videos, I love stickles because the glue is suspended. The glitter is suspended in the glue, and so you don't get the same mess as you do with loose glitter. But occasionally I love to pull some glitter out for this kind of technique where I'm going to be burnishing this glitter into this very, very strong tape. So I've got my 3 pieces laid out where I want them. And this tape is very, very sticky. So I'm just going to take my scissors and run around here and trim off the excess. Now, a couple of tips on using red line tape that I am not going to do in this video. So that's why I'm going to give you a tip, is when you get to the point of removing the liner, you really need to use what I call a pokey tool, that has a sharp tip on it at the end, because you'll see that I kind of pull the glue up a little bit with my fingernail by trying to get the liner off. So I suggest using that. It just helps get the tape off easier if you're using it for some kind of application like this. So I'm going to pull out my glitter for my red line. But first I want to put some ribbon in here before I start pulling out the glitter. So included were some ribbon and some twine. And I know I'm going to use the red, and I'm just kind of looking at the colors again because I couldn't remember offhand. I knew they were sort of a Christmas holiday tone. And then I don't love that green with the teal. So I'm just going to go with red and white, and then I'll take a piece of twine and add that to my tag as well. So I'm just losing my ribbon here. It slipped off the table, so I'm just retrieving it. And then I'm going to trim a couple of pieces down to thread through my tag. I also am going to pick out a piece of this twine. I'm going to choose that green one, and then I'm just going to figure out how I'm going to put this together. So I'm going to trim down my ribbon here, and I like to leave a generous tail on my tags. A lot of times I will make my Christmas tags before the season hits. If I'm making a video or I'm inspired to create a project and share, I'll go ahead and make them, but I don't know what what present I'm going to use it for. So I like to leave a generous amount on the end of my tag so that I can tie it to a bottle or a bag or something, and I just have enough of the ribbon left to be able to use it. So you'll see I like to thread it through this way and then pull it into a knot at the top. Very, very pretty. The ribbon is so beautiful. It's kind of a satin feel to it, and the color is beautiful. So I've got that, and then I'm going to cut a piece of the green twine, and I'm just going to tie a ribbon around my tag at the top. I like to do that sometimes just to add a little bit more color and to add some interest to the finished product. So I'll just tie that. I'm going to make another knot, and then I'll tie a little ribbon with that. And I love twine. I don't really use ribbon much anymore in my card making. I used to use it a good bit, but I've kind of gotten away from that more into stencils and one layer cards. And so it's fun to make a tag because I like to use those kind of things with tags. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to trim down the tails of these and just clean that right side up. All right, so we're almost ready to apply the glitter. So I'm going to get out a piece of cardstock. I'm going to pull out a piece of Swiffer. I use either a Swiffer cloth or a microfiber to kind of grab any loose glitter. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of loose glitter unless it's attached very well to the card. I don't know why, because I love glitter. I love shine, but I just don't like the mess of it, which is very ironic because if you could see my craft room, it is a disaster area, really. Like, I am the messiest crafter. And so the irony of that I wouldn't want to pile in a little bit of glitter mess it's just really ironic. All right, so I'm gonna peel off just one of the liner tape. So again, use your pokey tool, and then I'm gonna tap this off the excess, trying to get as much of it off as possible. And then I'm going to burnish my finger on the back of it, trying to get that glitter to stick even more. And for a little bit more irony, you can see I was looking for my bone folder, and you can see it right underneath that paper. I noticed that when I was getting ready to do the voiceover, that I was looking desperately for my bone folder, and it's right there. So just to keep it real, I'm a very keep it real kind of crafter. So, and there it is again. I just got a kick out of that. We're not perfect, that is for sure, in the craft room. Okay, so let me get back on topic. I'm sorry. So I've got the next piece that I'm going to do. So I'm pressed that green down really well, trying to get as much of the glitter to stick as possible. And then now I'm going to use my gold. And this one I'm going to kind of control a little bit more than I did with the green. I had more room down there, and since I've already got a color, I'm just going to gently tap on there so I don't have quite as much mess to pick up as well. So I've got that layer on there, and you can see I missed a little bit of that end. So I'm just going to take this glitter, and this glitter is so nice. It's such a high quality, and it's very fine, which I like. And it's beautiful for an application like this. So again, I'm going to take my finger, just press that directly onto the paper. You can see a little bit more glitter released. So I've got a nice hold of the remaining glitter. And I'll clean this little mess up again, and then we'll move on to our next color. All right, so I'm using my Swiffer again to get any little bits of glitter up. And then I can move to my final color. So if you didn't want to do the glitter in something like this, you could just cut some strips, some paper strips, and apply those at the bottom if you wanted to add this interest at the bottom of your tag. And then on the back, you could stamp a to from, write a to from, and write your message on there. I often add to these larger tags, I have a little gift card die holder that cuts out a little die pocket, and I will add those to the back of these cards. It makes a great way to hold a gift card or a little bit of money. So a lot of times I will do something like that. My children are much larger now, and they prefer a gift card or cash as they are teenagers and young adults. And so this is a fun way to still give a handmade element without having to wrap a gift. Okay, so I've got that beautiful red. I'm just finishing that one off. And then again, flipping it over and pressing it firmly into my paper to get the last of that glitter to stick. And I love the way that this turned out. And this is just a a fun old technique. Maybe you've got some red line tape or a super sticky tape like this double-sided tape in your craft stash that would work for this. I encourage you to give it a try. And I'm going to finish cleaning up that last of my glitter, and then I'm going to take my little Swiffer here and I'm just kind of brushing off the rest of any loose pieces. But it sticks very well once you press down and get that good adhesion. So I love the way this turned out, and I encourage you to think about making a tag for your holiday gifts. Okay, moving on. I've got another project for you here, and this is going to be all about texture paste. I loved the Hello Winter stencil included in the box, and then there's this beautiful wintry cardstock paper, patterned paper in shades of blue, and there's some like light pink and a little purple there. So I'm just flipping through these, picking out a few that I want to cut up. I'm going to make one with a stencil, and then some of the others I'm going to add to different projects. But the paper is just beautiful. And then there's also another paper pack that was included that's more of a traditional color scheme. It had more reds, although there were more grays and blacks in that one as well. All right, so I'm just going to pull my trimmer out here. I need to cut down a couple of these pieces of paper for the next few projects. So I've got my trimmer here. I'm going to cut this to, I'm just seeing what the size is. So it's 5 1/4 by 4. So I'm going to, by 8, I should say. So I'm going to cut that down to 8. It's probably 8 1/2. And, but I want a 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm also just making sure that the Hello Winter stencil is going to fit. So this is a fun and quick, easy way. If you've got texture paste in your craft stash that you don't ever really use, this is a fun way to use it with your stencils. And I'm going to add a re-inker to it to add some color because the texture paste is white. Although I do think that they make a clear now and maybe like a matte color. So they're different types of texture paste, but this is the one I'm going to be using, the one that is white from a Ranger. And I'll list that in my supply list. Okay, so I've gotten some paper trimmed that I wanted, and then I'm going to work on creating my custom color texture paste. So I've got this little jar that I picked up somewhere online, and then again I've got a Distress re-inker here, and then I've got my texture paste. So I'm going to create my own color, and then I'll be able to store it once I'm done, because sometimes you'll have leftovers, and then you can just mix more in that jar, and you know that that jar is that color. So I'm going to put a fair amount in here. My jar's getting a little low, so I'll have to pick up some more. Texture paste has a really nice body to it. It is not a thin paste. I do have some other brands of paste that one is a stencil butter, and it's a much thinner texture. So it just depends on what you're using, but I think this thicker paste will work great for this project. So I've just added about, I think, 3 drops there. You can see that color really starts coming out, but I've got a lot of product, and I'm going to add a little bit more in a second. And sorry, my hand is totally blocking because I'm trying to see what I'm doing, but you can see a little bit the beautiful blue color that's coming out here. I just kind of picked a tone, Mermaid Lagoon here, that I thought would work well with the shades of this patterned paper. So I added a couple more drops, and I'm going to just keep on blending here. And then when I'm satisfied, I can add my stencil to my paper, and I'm going to apply it directly to that patterned paper. So I've got my Make Art stay platform that helps me hold my stencils, and I'm just going to gently run this through. There are some kind of skinny pieces on this stencil, so I'm having to take care and be careful not to knock them too much out of place. I did have a little bit of smushing, so to speak, where I pushed a little too hard, but I think it still looked pretty good. So I was pretty happy with the result. But I'm just showing you in real time, taking my time here and getting this all out of my jar. and making sure that I've got the white part mixed up. And then I can save any of it extra for later, or I can create more. I'm just going to finish this one side here. I like this size spatula that has the longer end, and I just keep a bunch of those on hand to work with this. Scraping out again, and I'm almost satisfied with what I'm doing. And I love stencils because when you use a paste like this, it's kind of a great reveal because you can't necessarily see it. When you ink blend, you can see a little bit easier what's going on with the stencil, but this one's kind of a great reveal. Work that last little bit, and now I'm ready to pull this off. And let's see what we got. And I'm just going to carefully pull this off. This is the hardest part, is peeling it off and not making it fall on itself. And there we go. Hello, winter. And it is beautiful in person. So I'm super happy with that. I'll let that dry and we'll revisit that in a bit. Okay, moving on. This beautiful stamp I just stamped onto watercolor cardstock. And I am going to spend some time here coloring. I bet all told, this probably took me about 10 minutes to get my kind of pattern together of what I wanted to do while watercoloring. And so I'm going to pull out a block here. I've got some distress ink here. This is Mode Long. And so I have 2 watercolor brushes here that I like to use. This one has a wider brush on it. So you can see it makes very quick work of these larger images. And then I will use a finer brush for more of the detailed places. Now, since I'm not coloring this with a marker or some other kind of medium, this is going to be a more relaxed look, which is what I wanted. When I saw this stamp, I knew that I wanted to watercolor with it. I love the kind of vintage vibe on it. And so I'm just going to go around here and try and hit all of the areas that are green that I want to make green. And I've got my microfiber towel here where I'm going to brush off the ink to change colors. I'm going to wipe off that block and then I will move on to the next color. And this is going to be for the wooden pieces around the door frame. So the door frame, I guess you would say, of the house. And I just chose a brown here, and I'm going to go around. And you can see with watercolor, when you watercolor like that, it will get lighter. So if you only have one color of a distress ink, you can paint it, and then you can go back and use the same color, and you can make it a little bit darker. So it will kind of dye your paper, and that way you can get a little bit more use out of it with one color. And wood obviously is a natural product, so you would definitely have some variation of the colors. And then I also think everything is better once it dries. I'm coming here, changed my brush, doing the thinner one here to get these window sashes and the details related to them. And then I've got to do the inside, and then I'll color in that with a yellow for the window colors behind the lights on, so to speak. Okay. And I'm just doing this as I go and kind of working out the pattern that I'm going to create. I see there's some more green here, some more greenery on the side that I missed. So I'm just going back and working that in there. So pretty. And if you wanted to do something with the little ornaments at the top, there's some ornaments up there that I just went on and colored in. You could probably use like a stickles to add some color to that. Maybe if you had some red stickles, you could add a little bit of that to the balls, your ornaments, and that way would be a little bit more color if you wanted to do so. I'm using fired brick here, and I'm just pulling out the color from the edge, and then I'll turn this upside down. Since I'm left-handed, it's hard to get going on both sides, so I'm just going to flip my paper upside down and then pull out the color from the side because I want to pull it out from there instead of bringing it in. I think I make less mistakes if I have kind of an origin point and then I pull the color out, Because one of the big complaints I think about watercolor is controlling it. And to be honest, I'm not the best watercolorer, but I really enjoy it. It makes me happy, probably because it's a messy craft. and it's very forgiving. And you just get this really cool effect. So it's just a lot of fun. Now I'm going to start this door here, and it got really dark when I first started. And I want it much lighter than that. I probably should have picked a lighter color. And I just re-inked this pad. This is black soot. Usually it doesn't have this much color in it, but you can see it starting to lighten up as I add some more liquid to it. And so I'm going to in a second here, I'm going to take my microfiber towel and kind of blot off some of that color so it's not so severe. So watercolor, like I said, is very forgiving about that. And I can just see I've got way too much color there. So I'm just going to gently pull that out and wick that off of the paper. And so I've got a really pretty kind of gray black door. And I've got to do the center. Can't forget that. All right. So I'm going to choose a darker color, this walnut stain, to do underneath the arched doorway. There would be a shadow naturally there. And in looking at this beautiful stamped image, I think that is what it calls for. So instead of leaving that all black, I'm just going to come over here and add a little bit of that walnut stain to soften that up and give some interest. All right, now I've got scattered straw. That's the color I chose for my window. I definitely wanted a warmer yellow because I wanted it to go with the red and the other colors that I've chosen. Just the soft glow of the light around the holidays, right? And now they've got all these LED lights and they're so bright. I always tell my husband, I don't want to come into a home that looks like it's a runway with the planes taken off. The lights are so bright now, and I think because I'm getting older that it's too harsh on my eyes. So my husband and I laugh about that. I would like my lights to stay nice and warm. All right, now I'm going to go back to the yellow. These little globes here, which you'll see in your stamps at home. It's a little hard to see on camera. I could have zoomed in. But they're little candles in there, and so they're like little globes with lights. And then I'm going to work on the lantern on the bottom. And so I will add, if I haven't already, add a little bit of blue to the globe. And that will give you a little bit of, make it look like glass. So again, that detail is a little bit harder to see. And then I decided to go back here and finish off my brick wall. And so I'm just going to pull the rest of that color out. I got some more ink out the fired brick. And I'm going to pull that out and let that dry. And now I need to think about my sky. So I'm just kind of playing around with colors and testing things out before I make my final decision. And I'm going to choose faded jeans for my sky. I wanted it to be a little darker for sure. And so I'm just going to pull this up here. And I liked the way it looked next to the red and the green. And so I've just got my liquid here, making sure I've got enough of it to cover my page. And so I love the way that looks. I got a little bit overage there, so I'm just going to use my microfiber towel to dry that off. So it's good to keep something like that, a kitchen towel or something at hand, something absorbent is great to have when you watercolor. I'm going to repeat this on the bottom with the same color. I should have realized that I should have kind of pulled off the walkway a little bit and not put the blue down there. And maybe done like a gray or something for the snow. So I'm just trying to pull a little bit of that color off. And then I'm going to decide to use weathered wood to kind of darken a little bit of the snow where you can kind of see the drawing for the snow. And the first one I picked was way too dark. I don't even remember what that was. And then I went to the weathered wood, and that was a little more of a gray, which is what I wanted for my snow because it does get dirty and it's not always a beautiful color, but I did want to have a little contrast there. And so I'll finish that off there. And then I'm going to let that dry really well before I start cutting it. It will bow a little bit. You can see it's wet, and so I'll let that dry. So in the meantime, I stamped a bunch of these houses. I think it's the Christmas critters that has the little houses with it, like a big house and a little house. And I colored those with my markers. And then I've got some of the crystal clear that was included in your box. And fair warning, I put way too much glue on here. My thought process was I was going to add some glue with some kaleidoscope powder in there. And I was going to add that to my house, which I do end up doing. But I end up with so much extra because I am adding way too much glue and way too much kaleidoscope powder. I had that little scoop and I needed probably a third of it. But I'm not going to waste it, so don't worry. But this probably would have been enough glue. But then I decided that I needed to add a little bit more. I had a video for Inktoberfest about kaleidoscope powders. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out on Hedgehog Hollow's YouTube channel. That was posted this month, maybe the 10th, I think, of October. So if you want to go back and reference it, I talk a lot about kaleidoscope powders and how much fun they are. So you can see again, I've got a ton of glue and a ton of kaleidoscope powder, and the shimmer is beautiful. So I'm just going to add this to my roof line where there's that beautiful detail of the snow, and then on the bottom as well. And I'm sorry, the camera is so sensitive now. It went out of focus there. It's so sensitive, and it does such a good job that it makes everything clear that I didn't want to be clear. But anyway, you can see that I added it to there. You can see a little bit of the shine, and then I'm going to add a little bit to the window as well, since we got the soft, warm glow from those lights. And I will let that dry, and then I'll come back with a finished card for that one. But I was not going to waste all of this beautifulness, and so I pulled out another tag from the Tim Holtz bag that I had of the pack of tags. And I am going to coat my tag here with that beautiful kaleidoscope powder and the glue, because it's just too beautiful to waste. You get this nice subtle tone, and if you know anything about the kaleidoscope powders, they're different on light colored paper compared to dark colored paper. So I used that up. I still had some left because, again, I used too much. So I pulled out a piece of black cardstock. Same glue, same kaleidoscope powder, Asteroid, which I don't think I said, that is what I used that was in the box. And look at that. Talk about gorgeous. Oh my goodness. And so I was definitely not going to waste that. So I got as much of that off as I could and filled my background. And now it is dry and it's beautiful. So I'm going to trim this down and I'm going to create a card with it. So I trimmed this down to 3.5 by, I think, 5. And then I'm going to add this to a piece of that ho-ho paper that was included in your paper pack with more of the kind of traditional colors, the ho-ho-ho, the Santa. And then I'm going to bring a die cut from my craft stash. And I'm just working on getting the paper out here. I'm using red. And I'm going to cut this down with my die cutter. My paper cutter, I should say. But I am going to add a bit of adhesive here before I do that. I've got some of my Elizabeth Crafts adhesive because I want this to already have the adhesive on the back, because I am sticking it to this dried glue piece, and it's fairly delicate, a thinner die cut. So I want to make sure that I've got something to adhere. I'm not sure if the glue would work well to the glue. So just not taking any chances. I'm just going to add an adhesive to the back. I'm going to pull out my marquee machine here and run this through, and it die cuts beautifully. Everything falls out and it works great on things like that. I've got a review video on that marquee machine on my YouTube channel if you're interested. I did a lot of die cutting with it and trying it out over the last few years, and I have really come to enjoy it and rely on it in my craft room. Okay, so I'm popping this out, and then I'm going to peel off the sticker off camera because it just took too long. But I do remove the adhesive backing here, and then I'm going to apply that to my piece of kaleidoscope powder glue, and it is so pretty. So you can see I'm making a hot mess with it. Oh, I did actually get this off, but then I just have to turn this around and get it to fit. I love adhesive sheets, but they are super sticky, and so it's the trade-off of what you need it for. And now I'm going to lay that down, and I will press that on, and it seemed to stick very well. Just going to place this, and that Elizabeth Crafts adhesive is very sticky, as you can see. But you have just a second there to kind of move it, and then when you press it down, it is not moving. So I'm just going to burnish that in, making sure I get a great adhesion. And then I can go about my business of layering all of this together. I'm using a dry adhesive here because that paper was a little curled. A lot of times I mostly use liquid adhesive, but on this one, I like to use my dry adhesive. Pressing that down, and then I will add this to a red card base. This is an A2 sized card, and I love the way that it worked out with the extra accidental glue and kaleidoscope powder. So that would be cute as is, but I did have some other little cutouts that I made from the Christmas critters. There were all those little pieces, so I've got a little tiny candy cane here and a present, and I'm just going to use my tri-blend markers here to do a very quick color, and I'm going to keep it in traditional colors of red and green. And the beautiful little present. I think there were a couple of presents, a candy cane. I think there was also some snowflakes. I didn't get to use those. I didn't get to them, but I will at some point. And then I'm going to come back here with my marker and color the green ribbon. And then I'll just take a little tiny bit of glue and adhere that to my piece. And that should stick. If it doesn't for some reason, I'll just switch it out to a foam piece of foam dimensional and pop that up. Okay, so merry and bright. Okay, so that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Here is that tag with the beautiful wreath and the glitter on that tape. And then I just trimmed this piece down, the watercolor piece with that beautiful door frame, and added that to a white card base. I'll probably add a sentiment at some point, but I don't know what, since I'm not sure what I want to use it for. It's so beautiful. So I'll have to think about that one. Here is the Hello Winter. I added this to a piece of grape cardstock, and then I also colored a little friend here holding the balloon in some tones of purple and blue. There is that house with the kaleidoscope powder and the glue. Is beautiful. And then I just stamped Welcome Home and added another little critter in the corner. And then here is the Merry and Bright with the extra paper that I made using the kaleidoscope powder and the glue. And then here is an additional tag that I made. I added some of the other little pieces that were included, that Oh Holy Nights from my craft stash, and then I took one of the houses and I added some of this white pearl to it. So it's got some nice dimension, and then I just colored that little house. So I made another tag as well, and then you can see I added that sweet little snowflake. There were some little metal snowflakes included in your box as well. So I hope you enjoy the rest of Crafter Party. I hope you were inspired by what you saw. Be sure to leave me a comment. Let me know if you have a favorite, and thanks so much, and have a great day.